Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular town council meeting for Tuesday, October 27th, 2015. The opening prayer will be given by Pastor Douglas Valentine of the First Baptist Church. Please rise.
Will you pray with me? Lord God, I ask for this meeting your wisdom, your ears to hear, your words to be spoken. Lord, that we as a town may go forward the way we are best to do in your sight. Lord, and for elections that are upcoming, Lord, that though certainly many wish to be in these positions, Lord, that you would bring the right ones here, again, for your preferred vision of our future as a town here, Wallingford. We pray in the name of our God. Amen.
We'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Fishbein.
Here.
Laffin.
Here.
Letourneau.
Here.
Mansfield. Here. Parisi.
Here.
Russo.
Here.
Sullivan. Testa.
Here.
And Chairman Cervoni.
Here. For the record, Councilor Sullivan had previously advised me that he had a work obligation this evening. Moving on to item 3.
Mr. Chairman, there is a correction to the consent agenda, item 3E. The minutes for October 13th during the public question and answer period, page 3, paragraph 4, line 2, should read $1 million, not $1. So we wanted to make that correction. That being said, I move that we approve and accept consent agenda items A through E as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda passes. Item 4, there are no items removed from the consent agenda. Item 5, public question and answer period. Mr. Gross.
Good evening, Bob Gross, Long Hill Road. Through the chair to the mayor.
Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, it's from the Record Journal, and so correct it if you want. This was Saturday, October 24th, and it says in quotes, this was an article that you had with the mayoral candidates square off in second forum, and it quoted you as saying, Dickinson added that over 60% of the town's budget goes to the school system. He feels there needs to be, quote, some restraint on education spending. What does that mean?
I don't believe I used that exact terminology. The discussion was about having a zero tax increase. And my response to that question was that given that part of the response was that given that over 60% of the budget is for education, you cannot balance our budget on 40% of the budget. Education would have to be included within that equation of coming up with a no tax increase.
So are you looking at any ways with the education department, if it makes up such a huge percentage of the budget, any ways that potentially could keep taxes in tow?
I believe the council and I are very familiar with the process every year when we go through the education budget and make recommendations and changes, and that's been the process for many years.
One thing that's been mentioned over the last few years has been potential of one high school. That would save considerable amount of money, potentially, but a study needs to be done, and it's been discussed. Will the mayor, or is the mayor planning on funding that because it's to potentially save dollars down the road?
The responsibility for providing public education by state law is the Board of Education. Certainly, they have the responsibility to plan for providing education and ultimately explaining the cost of it. So whatever measures there are with regard to the future of education and in what form it should take, that is the responsibility of the Board of Education, and I would expect them to be making those recommendations.
If the Board of Education came to you with that recommendation, would you fund a one-school study, high school?
I can't answer that because I don't know all of the factual material surrounding such a hypothetical. Certainly, if they choose to do that, that should be part of their budget request.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgenstein.
Good evening, Larry Morgenstein,
Good evening.
South Main Street. I see all of you have your red ribbon buttons on. That's good to see. I'm hoping that there's other activities tonight. I'll be leaving for the lecture, but I'm hoping that we'll see you at Wednesdays or Fridays events for the Red Ribbon Week. I'd also like to thank the mayor for being there the other night, Friday, to kick things off. So I'm hoping that we'll get your support and see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Mr. Gross.
Good evening, through Rob Gross, Long Hill Road, through the chair to the mayor.
Yes.
You can chime in on this one if you guys so desire. This one's pretty basic. Mayor, this was, again, another, I guess, a town hall forum, it says here at the headlines. And it said that Mayor William Dickinson Jr., the Republican incumbent, noted Wednesday, quote, this is in quotes now, just about every department has access to email. What does that mean? I assume you mean town departments, and what do you mean has access to email? Do they?
That's exactly what it says, and that's what it means.
So
If they want email, they have access to email.
what does access mean? Does it mean they have it at their desk, or they have
It may not be at their desk, but if they choose to need email for some purpose, it is available.
And how would that? I don't understand. What do you
If
mean?
it's in this building, there's an office that provides that access.
So if I had a desk in this building and needed email, I would have to go, and I didn't have it, I would have to go to that desk to have it?
If you didn't have it at your desk, that's correct.
And there's how many terminals at that desk?
Bob, I'm not going to go by memory on things. If you have daily need of email, it's one answer. If there's not daily need on email, then there's another answer. It's all an evaluation of all of the facts surrounding your needs for email or activity sites on the internet, and that's the way it's handled. You have to show your need, and then we evaluate it, and it's supplied in measure of what's necessary.
You're saying you would have to show a need for email in the year 2015? That people would have to show an actual need for email, where people, I don't think there won't be one counselor up there that wouldn't have access to email right in their pocket right now.
And that's fine. That's what people find that they like to do. That's not necessarily the only way to communicate. There are lots of other ways to communicate. As a society, all we do is duplicate upon duplicate upon duplicate. All of it basically comes back to the telephone. The telephone provides communication. So does all of these other mechanisms. But the more you have the mechanisms, the more complicated the workplace becomes, and the more dependent you are, which costs more money.
Goes back to the previous then. I don't know how email would cost more money. I think if somebody has to leave a desk and move through another office, that's time away from their desk for two reasons. It's time, and then if somebody came in. So I don't know if you've ever done a study, but I don't know of any corporation or pretty much any town in the state that doesn't have pretty much widely uses email in today's society.
And because everyone else does something, that means you should do it? Is that the argument we have?
In this case, yes.
Well, I
understand.
never will agree with an argument that because everyone else does it, that's appropriate for you. Leadership is not necessarily doing what everyone else does. It's evaluating what is essential and acting on what's essential, keeping costs low. I would rather have people in contact with other departments, face-to-face conversations. It provides a far more work-friendly atmosphere throughout the town hall if people are comfortable in dealing with other departments on a face-to-face basis.
I mean, I guess I don't, does the council have anything to, I mean, you did have a technology committee. I mean, this is just crazy in the year 2015 that there's not email at everybody's desk, especially department heads.
I understand your position, Mr. Gross, and this is not an item on the agenda, so I'm not necessarily going to encourage the council to comment on it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment from the public? Mr. Kennedy.
On Kennedy, Bull Avenue. Again, going back to the email, you say everybody has access. Is there a printed list of email addresses that I could access? Because right now, I don't have any access to any email other than one or two specific departments.
We do not encourage general conduct of business through email. That will cost us more money.
I'm not questioning
I'm just
the
saying,
cost here. I'm just asking for a list of addresses of those departments that have it.
Where departments are encouraging public access through email, certainly that would be available. But often it's an email contact because the state of Connecticut won't do business any other way, so then we have an email contact. But it's not necessarily the case that we are encouraging everyone to use email, because now we're having 2 and 3 places to look for messages, and that is not efficient. I have departments complaining about what happens when you have 2 or 3 places to have to go to look to whether someone contacted you.
So the answer is there's no list available. Is that the answer?
I'm sure a list is obtainable where a department encourages contact by email.
So I have to, how do I get that list?
Well, you know,
I'm just curious. I mean, I'm not trying to, you made a statement and I think we're trying to follow up on that.
no, the real question here is, are you able to contact a department?
The answer is no, because like this week, there's a few people that have reported where they've called and there's no answer on the phone.
You couldn't, or you're telling me anecdotally someone couldn't?
Okay, I'll back away from that.
Okay. If a person can't contact a department, I'm concerned. If they want to choose one mechanism versus another to contact the department, I'm not as sympathetic. We have telephones. We have the ability to contact a department directly, talk to someone in that manner.
I'll ask that.
If you can't do that, then certainly I'm concerned. But we are structured so that business is conducted where a person can talk to someone and have whatever the question is or the problem is answered or dealt with.
I'll encourage that person to contact you directly because they reportedly said they could not get in through the regular phone. And that's why I was asking about the email addresses, because if we have email addresses, I'd like to know where I find them. And what you're saying is I have to go through department to department.
What I'm saying is, if you want to contact a department, there's a published list of phones, and if you can't get through to the phone, you can always call the mayor's office and say, hey, I couldn't contact X department, what's the story?
Okay, thank you. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mr. Gross.
Bob Gross, staying on the email pattern. Mr. Mayor, you were saying to contact, to do business, but, and this is nothing to say that the offices should be open past 5 o'clock, not saying that, but there are forms and so forth that you have to come into town hall to get. And one of the ways they could be gotten is by emailing them to somebody or having them available on the internet, and that would save people time. I don't know if you're aware of that, but email would save your constituents, the people of town, time to come to town hall if we could just have email, if all departments can have that, even the I mean, whatever.
That's an argument you have. I'm familiar with that argument. At this point, we do not do that for some very good reasons, part of which certainly is additional cost.
I'm just curiosity, what would the additional cost be to emailing a form?
Because I have heard from other towns, and when they have entered into like building departments, providing forms online, they tell us, don't go there if you don't do it. Because it is nothing that's going to bring you any kind of real efficiency. It creates a nightmare. Because you can't fill out those forms and deal with it in that manner. You've got to talk to someone. There are too many variables. There are too many issues surrounding a building permit. So, you know, everyone's got a story. We're doing things. It seems to work very well.
Well, that's your opinion. Just in an efficiency, I've had pulled building permits when you've done construction, and you take them home and you fill them out, and then you bring them back. And if you had a question at that point, you do it. You don't normally just stand there at the desk and fill it out, especially if you have a large-scale project you're doing. So to be able to pull them down offline, I don't understand all this living in, I mean, I understand you don't like technology, it appears, but we are in 2015, and it is, and just to your point, just because another town doesn't like it or doesn't do it, doesn't mean you should follow the same pattern, just as you said to me, just because everybody else is doing it. Thank you.
Mr. Morgenstein.
Larry Morgenstein, South Main Street. To follow up, there are departments that have emails. There is no list. A simple request. Could we get that list put on the town site? Now, I've talked to Public Works. I've contacted the water department, electric department. They'll give me their email. Wouldn't it make sense? It would cost nothing for the departments that have existing email addresses that it be published on the town site so you would have access. Is that possible?
As a general rule, we do not want to encourage additional ways of contacting town departments. For instance, say someone notices a defect on a highway or a sidewalk. Now you have to have someone watching 2 places at least to find out if we've been given notice. That will cost money because that becomes an official notice of a defect that would have to be fixed within a certain period of time. 2 places have to be watched. You can end up with 3 and 4 places in an office for someone to be keeping track of whether or not they've been contacted. That is not efficient. If you have one place, someone's answering that phone, you're not driven by what is the druthers of someone else who wants to contact you. That is the place to do it. You know, if there's a real emergency, we have 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, all year long, an office that can be called for emergency purposes. All other things certainly can be handled on a regular basis within the workday. I know Fortune 500 companies, they talk about people arriving at work and having 2, 3, 4 hours of emails that they're supposed to respond to before they even start working. Is that efficient? Absolutely not. There's plenty of evidence out there as to where this is not really a good thing. For a small business, maybe. A small business, okay. But a large business, you are asking for complications, added expense, and even legal difficulties where we then have to find out whether or not we were given notice of something and, gee, someone didn't look at the email that day or whatever, didn't look at the text, didn't look at the one place after another. No, let's simplify it. We can all use a telephone, call, and let your need be known.
Again, this is a simple request. I could email each and every one of the town councilors. I could call each and every one of the town councilors. All I'm asking, wouldn't it be easy enough with existing technology, with existing email address, not adding new ones, to post that as another option? And I've already got your answer, but I'm just going to leave it at that.
Once again, where a department is going to do business that way, fine. But where it is used for another purpose, there's no need for that to be a regular means of contact to the department.
Again, I've contacted them, I've gotten the email. It would have simplified things if I could have just went to the site, not taken their time, expressed my concern in an email. I don't get it.
Any other comments from the public? Sir?
May, South Ridgeland Drive. I will say Mr. Laffin was very accommodating a number of months ago in providing all the email addresses for all the counselors. That's the only place you can really get an email address. When it comes to your thoughts about phones, last Thursday morning, 9 a.m., I called the building department. Could not get through. 9:15, could not get through. No answers. Okay? Called Public Works about an issue on Thursday, late Thursday morning. Got through. It took Henry 5 business days to get back in touch with me. Is that efficient? Pretty sure I'm not done. Pretty sure if he had an email sitting in front of him, he could have looked at it, he could have addressed it. It was a very simple yes or no answer. So I'm sorry, I heavily disagree with what you're saying. Business nowadays depends on email. And I'd like to know what towns you've talked to that have told you that email's not a good idea. Because you know what? I deal with towns all the time, almost on a daily basis. They have no problem with it, the towns I deal with. So what towns specifically are you referring to, Mr. Mayor?
The response I made was to a building department and building permits. It's not emails in general. You know, we have the luxury as a society to argue about what means a person uses to contact an office. If we were really arguing about you can't contact offices, then I can really understand the debate. But to say it's not good enough to talk to someone, I need to use basically a pre-Civil War mechanism of sending a telegram to someone is incredible to me. Excuse me, I gave you a chance to talk.
All right,
I gave
one
you a
at a
chance
time.
to talk. Alexander Graham Bell came along and said, wow, you know, far better communication to hear someone's voice than to send telegrams. So we go through a whole process of upgrading all of our communications so you can hear a voice, understand what is the meaning behind the words, and now we're back to telegramming back and forth.
That's hardly a...
Try contacting state offices or federal offices and tell me how successful it is.
Gee, I called 2 state offices today. I had no problem whatsoever.
Well, that's fantastic.
No problem.
I'm pleased to hear that. We don't always find
So
that.
you're saying that our town is basically running on telegrams? You don't hear what you're saying, Mr. Dickinson. You don't hear yourself. You're talking about ancient technology. These town councilors run on modern day technology. Like I said, I can email any one of them, and I've emailed a number of them, and they have always been very quick to respond. Do you have an email address? Do you have a town email address?
I don't have a town email address,
Does your
no.
secretary have a town email address?
No.
I'm done.
With that, public question and answer is closed. On to item 6.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve a transfer of funds in the amount of $10,000 to the radio room project and equipment account from the CAD software dispatch account from the fire department.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Good evening, gentlemen. Remind us who you are.
I am Richard Heigert, Fire Chief, and to my left is Joe Setnar, Deputy Fire Chief of Operations.
What do we have here this evening?
What we're looking to do in this year's budget, supported by the mayor and the council, is $25,000 for what we call CAD. In our discipline, CAD is computer-aided dispatch, not design. There's a lot of acronyms out there that blend between different disciplines. What this program would do for us is, in the dispatch center, it would push information out that we would be using for resource management. That means basically the terminals we have and the different systems within our firehouse and in our vehicles would have access to where all the other resources are for different emergencies, things like that. The idea is still sound, but we got a little bit ahead of ourselves in that we're not ready for that equipment. The program that lives in the dispatch center is going to be looked at for upgrading in the very near future. The rest of the project became a lot of unknowns as we started moving forward, and it would be irresponsible of us to spend the $25,000 at this time, knowing that it's not going to be more than 2 years before we upgrade that system. So although the need still exists, we decided not to spend that money for that purpose. What we do have is a project in a radio room that was an old generator room at fire headquarters. We've repurposed the room to put all of our infrastructure, radios, computers, and that type infrastructure within that room. So we were funded for that as well this year, another $25,000 funding. The generator was removed, the room was disinfected from the generator for 40 years running there with diesel, painted the room. We've installed HVAC equipment so we control the moisture and the temperature within the room, so it's set up for IT. The next move that we have is actually moving our radio equipment into that room, and what we've found is that we've actually overspent that original budget of $25,000. So with the bids that we have out right now and our expected cost to move our infrastructure, both computer and radio network, our cost would be around $35,000. So by moving $10,000 out of the CAD program that we would not need into the radio room, it sets us up for what we want to do in the future, still working on that technology with CAD, but this gives us a platform where the electrical is sound, the bonding or grounding of the equipment protects us from lightning strikes and things like that. So we're moving a little bit more cautiously than we thought than we originally planned. So that's the intent of what we're doing.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, gentlemen. I think it was our last meeting, one of the things on our agenda was we discussed things that the mayor had decided weren't going to get expended this year, and one of those items was there was a reference to the CAD program. So if at the last meeting it was decided that that money was not going to be spent, how are we able to transfer this money?
It's actually funded at $25,000, and what I offered in that process was $15,000 of it. So we basically fractured up that $25,000. I needed only $10,000 to complete the radio room, and that left $15,000 unnecessary for us, for our needs. So it's only a portion of it that was
Okay,
available.
that makes sense. So then, just explain to me, there was talk about 3 meetings or 4 meetings ago about this centralized dispatch center. I would think this kind of infrastructure would be located at. Why not wait?
Most of this infrastructure is the radio portion that would still be within the fire department. So even if there's a combined dispatch center, we still need a radio network on the fire department side. So this would not be, it's not redundant, it's a whole nother system. So our internal server for our computers would be in this room. The radio system, we need a central location that gets dispatched, but then we have radio equipment as a backup, so that portion is redundant, so that if the center has to be evacuated for any reason, both police, fire, our disciplines have a backup terminal, if you will, and we also have the CAD program running for our local needs. So while the parent program lives in the dispatch center, our need is a smaller version of that. So we'll have monitors, for example, and an ability to look at the same screens that they see in dispatch, so we can control scenes or manage resources from the firehouse. We would never be going to the dispatch center to do that. So this gives us that connectivity, and it does give us the platform to move forward with that other larger project.
Guys, it was my understanding that all of that monitoring would be going on at the central dispatch instead of at fire station headquarters. So am I hearing something?
Yeah, that's actually not, we might have misspoke at that meeting, because while the parent program, the software that handles dispatch lives in the dispatch center, we do have the need in the firehouse for a smaller portion of that.
Okay.
So
if I can add, it's basically for resource management. We were looking to do that. That radio system there is the backup system for the primary at the police department. But we also have we wanted to get a resource management tool, because right now when we get 3, 4, 5 calls deep, we're basically whiteboarding where all our apparatus is. So it gets a little bit difficult to do that. We're using sticky notes in the shift commander's office. So with that CAD, we were looking for doing that, but that's not going to be possible at this time.
Okay, I'm just worried about the redundancy, and
Right.
I'm hearing there is no redundancy with the central dispatch, which I think is.
No, there is not.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Mansfield. Parisi,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
and Chairman Cervoni.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
At this point, we'll move ahead on the agenda to the addendum, which is to conduct a public hearing to consider and act upon an amendment to Chapter 203, Taxation, Articles 3 and 10, Tax Deferral Programs for Senior Citizens and Disabled Persons. Councilor Fishbein, as chairman of the Ordinance Committee, if you would kindly make an introduction before we seek comment from the public, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past few years, from time to time, there's been cleanup of ordinances, whether suggested by members of the council or asserted by department heads. This was a situation where I believe the department head of the tax department had suggested some cleanup to the ordinance. I think we spent 5 or 6 ordinance committee meetings working on this collectively with the law department, and this basically cleans up the statute. Statute has to do with deferrals for senior citizens and disabled persons from real estate property taxes. And I think that's enough introduction.
Thank you. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from the public on the proposed amendment to the ordinance? Seeing none, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Having given ample opportunity to the public, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for a motion and discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend Chapter 203, Taxation, specifically Articles 3 and 10, the tax deferral programs for senior citizens and disabled persons as presented in our packet.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Mansfield,
Yes.
Parisi,
Yes.
Russo,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Chairman Cervoni.
Yes.
The amendment, it passes.
The amended ordinance? It does. With that, on to item 7. Seven and 8.
I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, is there anything for? No, okay. I move we go into executive session pursuant to sections 1-206A, section 1-206E, and sections 1-210B2 of the Connecticut General Statutes with respect to the employment, performance, evaluation, health, and/or dismissal of a town council employee.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of going into executive session signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare the council in executive session, and I would ask that people kindly clear the council chambers. Thank you. Call the meeting back to order.
I move we come out of executive session.
Second.
All those in favor of coming out of executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare the council out of executive session. There being no further business on the agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, I declare the meeting adjourned.
Good.